to the and it just so happened that so anyway. Today I'm going to talk about my experience getting a bilateral mastectomy or double mastectomy. And what I actually had was a bilateral mastectomy with immediate reconstruction with expanders placed over the muscle. So I'm going to talk about my experience starting from 2 days before the surgery, right up until the surgery, and then about 10 days post-op, and then I'm also going to share some lessons that I learned along the way, which I'm hoping will help you. And please excuse the surroundings. I am clearly in my closet, and the reason for that is because it's nap time, and for my older daughter, it's rest time. And this is the closest or the farthest that I can be apart from both of them. My 4-year-old is safe. She's just watching TV in the other room, so she'll be able to watch her show and do her thing, and I'm doing my thing. So anyway, long story short, that's why I'm in my closet. So my bilateral mastectomy was scheduled to be about 1.5 months after my very last chemo treatment. But one thing that I was really thinking about during that period of time was, will I need anxiety medications? Because I had never had an invasive surgery before. The only other surgery that I've ever had aside from this one is getting my wisdom teeth removed. So I was just kind of nervous and anxious. Obviously, those are totally normal feelings to experience before a double mastectomy, but I just didn't know if I was at the point where I might need medication for it. And I'd never taken medication for anxiety before, but I thought, if anything, this might be the time that I might need some. So it was in the back of my mind. But every time I thought, do I actually want to pick up the phone and call my doctor? I really thought that I was okay. So I just kind of kept pushing it off. And then 2 days before the surgery, I had a complete meltdown. And I was just uncontrollably crying and shaking, and I was just terrified, honestly. So I spent the whole rest of the day in my pajamas, in bed, and watching TV. So that was 2 days before my surgery. The day before my surgery, I actually felt so much better, and I just kept myself busy by cleaning the whole house and doing laundry and sort of doing things that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do for a little while after surgery. And that was great because it kept me occupied the whole day. So then the day of surgery finally came, and I was extremely nervous again, not quite at the point that I was 2 days prior, but that morning I was actually really grateful because my husband was able to come with me. So just weeks prior, the hospital that I was getting surgery at was not even allowing one visitor. No visitors were allowed in that hospital until just a couple weeks before my surgery. That changed, and then you were allowed to have one visitor. So I was really relieved that my husband would be able to come in with me, be with me during pre-op, and then be with me after surgery. So anyway, my husband and I went into the hospital, and the first thing that I did was, of course, a bunch of paperwork, and then the receptionist gave me a kit, and the kit had a toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, and a cup to give a urine sample. So I brushed my teeth and gave my urine sample, and then my husband and I were walked to the pre-op room, and there they gave me a huge thing of, they looked like just extra large baby wipes. So, hello. Hi.
Are you filming?
Yes.
I want to go to the splash pad today.
That's a great idea.
I'm so sweaty.
You're so sweaty?
Are you?
No, but you were outside. That's why you're sweaty. Here, let me finish this, and then we'll go to the splash pad, okay?
Yay, splash pad.
Okay, go with Daddy.
Just where my baby.
Okay, so I was given these wipes to wipe down my whole body, and these wipes were like baby wipes, but they were huge. They were probably like this big, super thick, and I was supposed to wipe from top to bottom. So I did that, and then I put on this gown that they gave me, and it was kind of like a paper gown that you would wear, you know, in the doctor's office if you're gonna get a physical exam or something. But then on the inside of it, it was lined with plastic, so it actually made me really hot. And then they also gave me socks you know, hospital socks with the rubber bottoms. And then I had like the cafeteria lady hat. So basically what happened after I wiped myself down with those wipes is I had another little mini meltdown. And it was just because it was becoming real. You know, I had been told since day one that I would need a mastectomy. The whole time it was in the back of my head. And then all of a sudden there I was, and it was about to happen. So I was really scared. I was crying, and, you know, my husband was there, and the tech was really sweet, and everyone was just trying to make me feel better. And it just so happened that my surgeon was at the nursing station close by my room, and she was making a phone call. And right after she got off the phone, she came to me and she comforted me and just reassured me that everything was going to be okay. And she was just so sweet, and I love her. She's just the best. So then after that, they needed to get an IV in me, and my nurse tried twice and did not succeed. So they actually had another nurse come in with an ultrasound to guide him to be able to get my IV in. And that was successful, thankfully. And then we had the anesthesiologist come in and kind of go over all of the risks of the surgery. So I think I've mentioned in previous videos before that I actually work in the hospital, and I worked in this hospital where I was getting my surgery. So I actually knew the anesthesiologist. So that was kind of nice to see a familiar face. And I did mention to the anesthesiologist my adverse reaction to the fentanyl and Versed from my port placement. So he actually gave me a scopolamine. Is it scopolamine? Scopolamine? Whatever. I'll write down the appropriate name for it and maybe a link to some information about what it is. But it's basically a little patch. It looks like one of those tiny circular band-aids, and he put it right behind my ear, and that was supposed to help me with nausea for after the surgery. So then, as surgeries typically go, it was a long wait. I think I went in like a couple hours after I was supposed to have gone in for surgery, and then finally about 20 minutes before the surgery was going to start, the anesthesiologist gave me something for my anxiety, and that totally put me at ease. And I remember saying goodbye to my husband and wheeling down this hall and into the OR. I remember transferring myself from the pre-op bed to the OR table. And then really after that, I have no memory of anything else except waking up. So I'm gonna talk about what my experience was like right after I woke up from surgery and the first couple days after surgery. So I just want to kind of forewarn anyone who's watching this, if you are in an emotional state where you're not really ready to listen to someone talk about pain, I will put a number down here to where the next section of my video will start so that you can skip over this. But I just want to be really mindful of people who haven't had the surgery before. And yeah, just I want to give you a second to think about if you're, you know, ready to hear about pain. And if you are, go ahead and stay with me, and if not, skip ahead to this next number within the video, and I'll be talking about some other things there. But basically, I remember waking up from my surgery, and we were in an elevator. I was in the bed, and I could hear Billy's voice, and I could hear him talking to a nurse. I was in and out, and I just remember saying, "Billy," that's my husband's name, and he said, "Yeah," and I said, "I love you." And I couldn't tell if people could hear me or not, so I just kept saying pain, pain, pain. And I was in a lot of pain. I was at like a 10 out of 10 pain level. So then we got into my room, and Billy was there for a little bit, but he did have to leave because visiting hours were over. And then I just remember telling the nurse I was in so much pain. I was originally at 5 milligrams of oxycodone, and then they bumped me up to 8 or 10, I can't remember. And honestly, I couldn't tell a difference. The other thing too is that I was told ahead of time that my throat would hurt from being intubated, and my throat didn't hurt, but it was just so dry. My throat and my mouth were like super dry, and it was just uncomfortable. So I remember I kept pressing the call light button, asking for someone to come in to give me an ice chip. So someone would come in, probably a tech, give me an ice chip, and then walk out the door. And sometimes the tech would say, "Is that enough? Do you want more?" And I would say yes. Like anytime they gave me an opportunity to get another ice chip, I would say yes, please. But they couldn't stay with me for very long, and this is during COVID, and so I knew that, you know, I couldn't have someone stay with me to feed me ice chips. But It was really uncomfortable. It made breathing uncomfortable. The other thing is that they wanted me to go to the bathroom, and I was in so much pain that I didn't want to sit up. They sort of had me at a 45-degree angle, and I remember the first time the nurse told me that she wanted me to go to the bathroom, I just said no. I just said, I don't think I can move. I'm in too much pain. And she said, well, let's give it a try. And so I had the kind of bed where you can press a button and electronically the top of the bed will start sort of coming more at the 90-degree angle. And she pressed that button for like a millisecond, and I told her to stop because it just hurt too much. So then I tried using the bedpan at the 45-degree angle that I was in, and I just couldn't do it. So then they said, well, let's bladder scan you, and you know, if you don't have a ton of urine, then maybe we can wait a little bit longer, but you probably do need to go. So they bladder scanned me and they said, you need to go now. So we tried a couple different methods, and eventually the method that worked was my nurse was sort of holding on to me like on either side of my arms here and helping me sit upright as the tech was pressing the button to raise the bed. So I used the bedside commode, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this before, but you know when you have to pee so bad that even when you're peeing, just so much pee is coming out that you can't believe you're still peeing? So that happened, and then I did feel some relief after that was over, and then got back in the bed, and the whole night I had these, I don't know what the proper name is, but I had these things on my legs. They're basically to help avoid blood clots. So those things are like pumped with air, and then the air gets released, and then pumped with air, and then the air gets released. So that was going on all night, and of course I didn't feel like I got a good night's sleep. I was in a lot of pain. Those leg things were waking me up. They were taking my vitals. You know, it's a hospital. No one gets good sleep in a hospital. So then I actually had some coworkers of mine who asked if they could come visit me for a quick minute, and I'll show you some pictures too of what I looked like after my surgery. And it's actually kind of hard for me to look at these pictures because I can just almost feel the pain all over again, and I look horrible. But my coworkers came up to say hi, and one of them in particular stayed for a good chunk of time to feed me ice chips, and that was amazing because again, my throat, my mouth were just bone dry. It was so unpleasant. So she ended up staying for a while longer, and that was amazing, and oh my gosh, I'm just like eternally grateful to her for that. And then eventually visiting hours were open again, so my husband came back. So shortly after that, my surgeon came in to check on me, and I told her about my pain level, and she actually gave me tramadol through the IV. And so that was supposed to help with swelling and pain, and that actually did. That was the one thing that made a huge difference. Then I was finally able to sleep. So I think she saw me around 11, and then I think I slept from like 11 to 4 or so. It was the best sleep that I had had since my surgery. Oh, and the other thing that my breast surgeon did was she took off my compression bra. So I actually still haven't gotten to the bottom of this quite yet, but there's debate as to whether or not you should wear a compression bra after a mastectomy. I can't remember the argument for the compression, but the argument against it, which was the belief of my breast oncology surgeon, was that you don't want to restrict blood flow. So she saw that I was wearing this compression bra, and I think you can see it in one of these pictures that I have. I'll put it back up if I haven't already shown it. But she took that off, and that made a huge difference in my pain level too. So she actually apologized and said that I should not have had that on because that was probably contributing to a lot of my pain as well. So she took that off, and I felt immediate relief. I still was in pain, but it was just much less than the pain that I was experiencing the whole night. And I still was wrapped, I kind of was double wrapped. I think I was wrapped with an ACE bandage, and the compression bra was on top. So when she took off the compression bra, I was still wrapped up. It's just that I didn't have this extra layer of compression on top of it. Anyway, that helped a lot. And then after I woke up from my decent nap, I walked around the unit. So despite being in the amount of pain that I was in, just keep in mind, I was still able to walk the next night after my surgery. So the day after my surgery, I was discharged around 6:30 p.m. So 6:30 p.m. we were in the car heading home, and honestly, the next 2 days were a blur. I was still in a lot of pain, and I was kind of in and out of sleeping. But basically my husband describes the first few nights as it was like having a newborn. You know, when you come home with a newborn, they don't usually sleep for more than 2 hours at a time, and it's completely exhausting, and the baby just always needs something, whether it's to be rocked or fed or whatever the case is. So he said it was like having a newborn. I was asking for pain meds. I was asking to be readjusted with my pillows. I was asking for help to go to the bathroom. It was just one thing after another, and I'm so lucky and appreciative for my husband because he was such a champ about it, but I really don't have that many memories. It was very foggy the first few days. So when I got home, I was taking antibiotics round the clock, oxycodone round the clock, and hydrocodone round the clock. So my husband was keeping on top of the medications and making sure I was getting everything on time, and yeah, it was a lot for him. So honestly, the first 3 days, I was in a lot of pain. And then day 4 and beyond was so much better. Actually, day 4 to day 8, I was taking Tylenol, ibuprofen, and oxycodone. I had dropped the hydrocodone. And then like around day 10, I was only taking Tylenol. So the hardest thing about it was the pain. But for me, the significant pain lasted for 3 days, and then it only got better from there. So I had watched YouTube videos and I had seen pictures of people who had gotten mastectomies and were like smiling the day after surgery, walking around, not seeming to be in a tremendous amount of pain. So I know that that's possible, and unfortunately that wasn't my experience. But I think that it is definitely possible to have a better experience than what I had. But even if you do have a similar experience to what I had, it was only 3 days. Like, you can do anything for 3 days. And it went by, and then it got so much better. So now I'm going to talk about the lessons that I learned from this. And my first lesson was that this is not the time to be brave and say, I'm okay, I don't need help, I'll be fine. I think actually in this situation, the brave thing to do is to ask for help. This is a time where you're going to need help. So if you can, I would highly recommend bringing someone in with you to the hospital to be with you before surgery, and having someone with you after surgery, especially after surgery, to help sort of advocate for you. The second lesson that I learned is if you even think you might need anxiety medications to help you before the surgery, just go ahead and schedule an appointment with your doctor. I should have done that. It was in the back of my mind the whole time, but even the fact that it was a thought that I might need it should have been my indication to just go ahead and schedule that appointment and get some anxiety meds. The next lesson that I learned is that it's really important to have someone with you at home after the surgery. I would say for the first 3 days at least, and that's because you need to be taking pain medications and antibiotics around the clock. And I just think that right after your surgery, you're not mentally in a place where you can keep track of that kind of thing yourself. So definitely, if you can, have someone be with you for, I would say, at least 3 days right after your surgery. The third lesson that I learned from this is to ask your plastic surgeon and your breast oncology surgeon about the issue of a compression bra. Now that I think about it, I didn't even talk to my plastic surgeon about the compression bra, but I did with my breast oncology surgeon, and I think it's because she brought it up. So I do remember what her view was, which is that you really don't want to restrict blood flow in that area right after surgery. I don't know what his argument was because I never even brought it up with him, and I still have to ask him about it. But now that I have this hindsight view, I would recommend that you talk ahead of time to your oncology surgeon and your plastic surgeon if you're getting reconstruction about the issue of compression. The third lesson that I learned is that it's so important to advocate for yourself. You are your best advocate. So just for example, with my bad reaction to the fentanyl and Versed, and making sure that my anesthesiologist knew. If I hadn't told him about that, he wouldn't have known, and I would have never gotten the patch that I can't remember how to pronounce. The scopolamine, I don't know how to pronounce it. The scopolamine patch, however it's pronounced, that patch. He never would have known. And I think it's just really important, especially in this time with COVID going on, with nurses being tremendously busy and understaffed. You know, in an ideal world, every single nurse and every single doctor would look at your whole chart before they even speak with you. But realistically, that doesn't happen all the time, and really the responsibility lies on you to tell your medical providers what's happened in the past, if you've had any bad reactions, what you're concerned about, so that they can be aware and help you the best that they can. So the last thing I just want to say is to just remember that this was only my experience, and everyone has different experiences, different pain levels, and some people really don't have a ton of pain, and I hope that that will be the case for you. But even if you do have a similar situation to mine where you do experience a significant amount of pain, it doesn't last for very long. And if I can do it, you can do it, trust me. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.